Hey Mo,
Hey, Ricky.
the doctor is in.
Yes, yes, the doctor is in another Wednesday in the house, and we are so thankful for it. And it's a good Wednesday to talk about the state of Black health, right? We just had the State of the Union yesterday, and it
Right?
brings up the question, right, of what is the state of this thing. We're here on Black Doctor, right? Blackdoctor.org, talking about Black health 365, 24/7. What's the state of things? So we're going to get into it a little bit today, I think.
We do. We have some amazing guests. And I think we can attack it from all sides. And I don't love Black History Month because I'm still Black on March 1st, and I'm in June, and I'm Black in September. But I do think it's a time when the world is watching us and giving us attention. So let's take advantage of it and talk about it. So look at these beautiful people. I always tease Dr. Keith that I always surround him with beautiful Black women. He's
Yes,
so
she
lucky.
does. She does.
So why don't we start with you,
I
Dr.
got
Keith?
my overdose.
Hey, Dr. Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
So
I'm doing
introduce
all right.
yourself, honey.
Oh, you want me to introduce myself? Okay, well, I'm Keith Crawford. I'm the Director of Clinical Trials and Education at Prostate Health Education Network, and I co-host a little show with Ricky over there on Sunday, on the first Sunday of the month, when we start talking about bone health and bone health in Black women and the health of Black women. I bring in kind of the science component to it sometimes, but I get my little education too. They keep me in place.
Yes, you do, because you have a lot of letters with D's behind your name.
Oh, yeah, I'm an MD PhD.
Those are a lot of letters. That's a lot of weight there, brother.
It is.
I said, but one thing it is that I always put in with God's grace. I wouldn't be.
Amen.
So I have to give all honor to him.
That's right.
That's why I'm here.
Right.
Oh, we're all here. Absolutely.
I learned a new word this week, Mo. I have a God job. Isn't that a cool way to think about it?
Mhm.
I like that.
So,
A God job.
but we all have one.
We all have God jobs, right? How cool is that? I love that word, right? That's my new word. All right, Z, my lovey Z.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Harper, and I am a breast cancer navigator here in Oakland, California. I'm also a commissioner for the Department of Public Health, the Department of Public Health Commission, and just civically engaged in all facets of health. So, thank you.
Always with the voice and the heart of the patient in mind. Sometimes we get into our lofty conversations and you're like, wait a minute, I got to bring this back down to the level of where people are really living. And I
Right.
think it's so important to have advocates like you and have a voice like yours that never ever forgets those facts, right? In the midst of all the facts and all the data, it's the humanity of people, and you always represent it, and it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
It is
Thank you,
beautiful.
guys.
She has a God job. She has a God
Yeah.
job.
And you know how important that navigator is,
I do.
Right.
because the navigator is the person that kind of connects the clinician, the healthcare provider, and the patient together. And there's nothing wrong about holding that hand
Not at all.
and translating.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
essential.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Critical. I mean, my navigator and my chemo nurse were my people when I was sick.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I called, not the doctor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thing. All right, Kristen. So glad you're here.
Hello. Thank you, Ricky. So I am Kristen Hobbs, and my God job is implementation epidemiologist and health equity strategist champion. In my day job, I currently work for the National Minority Quality Forum as Director of Quality Improvement and Equity. I'll be transitioning to a new role that Ricky just learned yesterday. I'll be able to talk all about that probably next week. And I also have a consulting firm for health equity, and I help really small organizations do the work and do it well, learn about health equity, all that jazz, develop health equity strategy. And that is the Equity Studio. And I am here on behalf of Ricky because I love her. I met her at Komen when I was there, And we serve in a number of capacities. I think we see each other on steering committees and meetings all the time. And she asked me yesterday at one of those steering committee meetings if I could join. And I said, absolutely. Why not?
You know,
So let's talk about
this
that.
meeting, we're on this American Cancer Society Breast Cancer Roundtable Steering Committee. It's a long thing, but I woke up in the morning and I said, "Oh my God, Kristen, she could be on the show." I need, like, Kristen, can you
Oh,
do this?
thank you.
So happy you're here. So happy you're here. And April, who I just met, she's a bestie. Besties are besties.
Yes. So yeah, I'm April Love, and my company, I have two companies, Ask April Love and Vanguard Creative. I am a producer in the space of TV, film, and digital. I'm a writer, brand strategist, and I founded and executive produced a live event called the Pink Awards.
Fabulous.
Pink Awards.
Pink
Yeah,
Awards.
we want to hear more about the Pink
Yeah.
Awards for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons that Ricky and I connected. The Pink Awards is we're on our 5th year, but I started it basically out of my own bout with breast cancer. I would host these Pink events. I've always been an event producer. And so when my life changed completely, I was diagnosed on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2009. And I was preparing I just got a new office space, some employees, and I was about to have the best year of my life in 2010. And it's so funny that old saying that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So abruptly, everything changed for me. And it's, if I can share briefly, the importance of, the fact of just maintaining your exams, because I didn't find anything. I wasn't 40 years old yet, so they were not really, advocating for us to, get your mammograms. I had not done any of that.
Right.
But I had not had a very, very proactive doctor, who said, I'm going to put you in for a mammogram. So I'm like, oh, okay. I wasn't.
Very interesting. Was it a doctor of color or just
No, it wasn't actually. My OBGYN was a doctor of color, but my primary care doctor, Dr. Motorhar Ford, I would never forget her name. She didn't even tell me though. She just put me in for a radiology appointment. She said, I want you to go over here and take this mammogram. And I ended up doing it on Black Friday. And right by the mall, I went to that location because I had a lot of shopping to do, because I wasn't thinking I'm like, this is very, this is something, I don't feel nothing, everybody tells me, don't worry about it. I was like, okay. And then I went in for this exam, and I went in there, the room was pink and it was ribbons everywhere. And it was a lot of older women. So I was just like, feeling like I'm out of my element, but I'm going to do what she said, do. And that's so funny because it was not at the forefront of my mind, because I almost left. I had to get 2 radiology things done, and I forgot about the mammogram. I got to the elevator and I went back and I said, I was supposed to get something else done. They were like, oh, we have you down for a mammogram, but they were like, oh, but you're only, 30 something. And they were like, well, did you feel something? Really kind of talking me out of it. I'm like, no, I think I'm gonna, I'd go ahead and do it. And like I said, fast forward, I was there getting that exam, and then the room emptied, like it was only me in there. And once the last grandma left, I was like, wait, they were like, we just wanted, they say we're fibrocystic as women, period. So we want to see if they could press it out and, and see. So I did it. And then the radiologist wanted to speak to me. So they put my scan on, on the lighted board. And she's like, you see this area, this is the area of concern. And so I'm over here like, now I'm been there like 2 hours. I'm like, concern? You don't want to be in concern at that kind of appointment. But it just fast forwarded from there. She said, we're going to biopsy you. I had to go to Google. I didn't know what a biopsy. I was like, biopsy, and get to Christmas Eve. And they like, just like, what we thought, because I went into I had to, do that with a breast care surgeon, and you start talking about breast care plans. And I was just in a daze. I was just like, okay, yeah, because when she called, and I pray that they don't do this anymore, call you with this kind of information. And I don't know if they did that with you, Ricky, but she was like, are you sitting down? Are you by yourself? I'm like, lady, just tell me, because I am, I was by myself. But she was like, well, it's what we thought, and I asked her, I said, are people still dying of, breast cancer like that? Because, I see all the walks, and I've been, done stuff with all of the organizations, and I'm like, they gotta have found a cure, you know, or something. And she's like, no, they die, people die every day, and this is very serious. You're stage 3. And so my journey began.
Wow, your God job, huh?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
my God job was really
What kind of
birthed.
breast cancer what kind of breast cancer did you have?
I had a stage 3 ductal carcinoma, estrogen receptor positive cancer, so hormonal. So it was super receptive to treatment.
Chemo.
Or-
Mhm.
Yeah, but because it was so large, and I did have a couple what do you call it, in my lymph nodes.
Lymph nodes, yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple, so they wanted to do chemo first before they want to see if they could shrink it. And so, you know, it was just so many decisions. I actually disappeared. I also, I'm a big advocate for mental health in that space too,
Yes.
because the abrupt diagnosis, and people can be, it's, you know, willing to support as much as possible, but until you are breasty or you dealt with that diagnosis, it's not very much, you know, like, well, I'll just take off all my breasts. They tell you everything that they would do. I'm like, I'm not even 40 years old. I want to still, you know, and I was just like, I don't want to, it was just too much. So I had to really just clock out. And I'm so grateful that I was connected to a navigator. A navigator really saved my life, like introduced me to other modalities, you know, like, you know, Tai Chi, like Piedmont in my city they have like a cancer center. And so it's not just about the surgery and the chemotherapy and the radiation, but it's about supporting your mental health. It's about being around other people who are also going through what you're going through, different levels, different stages. And that was so important to me. And that's not something that I was introduced to until maybe 3 months into my process, that a navigator even existed. That's why with the Pink Awards and my foundation, it's all about educating, you know, it's not about, I mean, I'll leave the finding, you know, better treatments and chemo drugs and things like that too, like Coleman and ACS and stuff. But I want to be on the ground, you know, with people, because like I said, when you're there, you're in a blur. You know, they're trying to tell you, but you're making decisions that are very specific to you.
Mhm.
So
Okay, there was one question I want to ask you. Sorry for interrupting. Do you have a family history?
you know what? That's so funny that you mentioned that. And it's something I did not. I was adopted within my family, but come to find out through ancestry DNA, which is a whole nother topic, I found out that my birth mother did have, I'm sorry, my birth grandmother
Right.
did have breast cancer.
Ah,
Yeah. And I had been misinformed because I'm telling the doctors the whole time, no, you know, I'm not, I know I did BRCA, I didn't have any, you know, I didn't have that gene, but I thought it was just no, you know, it didn't exist in my family because that was part of the family that I did not know. And I was given wrong information.
Right.
Yeah.
And that last question, Rick, I just want to ask is, how is your bone health?
How is it now?
Or did anybody talk to you about your bone health?
No, but you know what's so crazy about that? My bone health, I work with even physical therapy now, because what I did was start really digging to get information and just kind of seeing, like, because nobody told me about neuropathy. Nobody told me about the treatment that you know, the gift that keeps on giving. So I didn't know about how Taxol, one of my chemo drugs, was very harsh on the bones. So I'm trying now to, you know, get a handle on that.
and it really is a journey, right? It's a lifelong process of managing side effects, of trying to correct the things you didn't know, and optimize what your body can do now. Because some of those side effects can take years and years, and they may never go away. You know, Dr. Crawford, you're asking a really great question about bone health. I think in premenopausal women, especially, we don't really focus on bone health at all. We just assume, especially with Black women, that their bone health is going to be at least average until they hit menopause, and then if they go on estrogen blockers after that, you know, that there may be some bone density loss. But it's not something that's widely talked about, and it really
Not a bit. And then and the reason why I bring it up is that's you have breast cancer and they didn't talk about it. And Black women, especially in the North, may be vitamin D deficient.
Oh yeah.
Because we are lactose intolerant. That means majority 6%, more than 60% of the Black folks in the United States are lactose intolerant. So,
And under fluorescent lights all day long, right?
where do you get your nutrition from? Do you take multivitamins? Do you take vitamin D for your health? Because that's a key component to our health. That's direct. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that's directly related to the NIH knowing that Black people in America are vitamin D deficient, and vitamin D plays a key role in boosting your immune response.
Mhm.
There's a lot of other things it does. Bone health, obviously, stronger bones, but it plays a key role in optimizing your immune system.
Right.
And you've never gotten a bone scan?
Select areas, but I have not had like a head to toe. No. Just where areas were bothering me. And that's a lot of areas.
They gave you a T-score. You have a T-score?
No.
Ricky, we're gonna have to talk to her.
Yes, please talk to me.
Mhm.
Everything I basically, glean from my own journey, I share with other survivors or people that are newly diagnosed, or just we have pink ladies at the that we work with throughout the year, and it's just a lack of knowledge, and I don't want to be the we perish for lack of knowledge group. You know what I mean? I want to know, yes.
Can we talk about that a little bit? And see, I'm gonna pull you into and you too, Kristen, to talk about the state of health literacy, right? In our communities, and what do we don't know that we don't know? And can we maybe talk a little bit about some of the ways that we maybe have seen it improve, and some of the places where we still need to go with health literacy? Because, you can educate somebody about a cancer journey, but until you go through it, there's still a lot. And even after you diagnose, you still don't hear everything. It's like that bomb went off and people are talking at you and you can't hear anything because all you heard was cancer. But Mhm.
We back with Charlie Brown again. Wah, 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 wah.
Well,
But what is the baseline state of health literacy in our communities, if we may generalize a bit, in 2023, coming out of COVID? Where are people?
well, for me, I would say, what is the investment in health literacy? That's where I start.
Come on.
Because I think that what happens is we inadvertently shift the onus to the patient. And what is literacy?
Right.
How are we even defining it? Is it a little ugly pamphlet that we get when we come in and leave? Is it someone that's really investing in establishing some type of ongoing educational system that is not only informative, but empowering? I feel like, there's a great deal of area for growth in terms of intentionality and reimagining what health literacy looks like. Health literacy almost sound based to me. Like that's just kind of like the beginning. What about developing health subject matter expertise within our communities in a way that is we present to them and we teach them and we empower our community using our language. A lot of the barriers and the burdens to care aren't grounded in the clinical.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to exactly we can
Right.
reimagine how we present that and where that shows up in the medical outcome.
Right.
Like not to go crazy, but I printed out this quote from Kimberly Crenshaw, because I work with intersectional.
Yes.
Yep.
And she says, because the intersectional experience is greater than the sum of racism and sexism, any analysis that does not take intersectionality into account cannot sufficiently address the particular manner in which Black women, and I'm going to expand that community, are subordinated. Thus, for feminist theory and anti-racist policy discourse to embrace the experiences and concerns of Black women community, the entire framework that has been used as a basis for translating our Black experience, I'm inserting that, or the Black experience into concrete policy demands must be rethought and recast. And for me, that means in this space, redefining literacy. I think that keeps us in a position where we only ask limited questions because we're only given limited information as it pertains to a particular situation, as opposed to our overall health and what the effects are. whether it's environmental justice, no matter what, there are ways in which our health is being impacted constantly. And then when you take in the framework historically, whether it's redlining, whether it's disinvestment in our overall education system, girl, they don't want to give us a regular education. You think they're going to spend a lot of money giving us a healthcare education? So, I mean, when you think about all of that, it's like our outcomes oftentimes are the result of disinvestment as opposed to just clinically related issues. So that's what I would say.
I love it.
Well, I completely agree. I think the number one thing, just piggybacking off of what you were saying, speaking in our language, a lot of health information is not written or displayed in the cadence in which Black people speak. People try to appropriate our language, but we speak in a certain cadence as well. And it's a lot of times slapping a Black face on a document and calling it a go. And those things don't resonate, right? I also think we are not, as a broader public health and health community, not reaching people where they are. There are very few programs on the ground that are engaging community leaders and community members who are trusted, who can then be conduits for that information. Because even as a Black woman, I still represent a system that has been historically oppressive, right? That has, to Z's point, disinvested in our communities. And so even as a Black woman, I just can't come in every community and talk about breast cancer and breast health, breast cancer screening in the continuum of care. I have to develop trust, maintain that trust, find trusted leaders, and that goes along with communication, that goes along with health literacy. How do we expect our communities to become health literate, obviously literate, right? What does that mean? And without investing in those leaders that really, really can reach folks. And the last thing that I will say is nobody's listening. Nobody's listening to Black communities anyway, right? So it's like we are continuously screaming into the void. We don't receive information that way. We don't want to be spoken to that way. You're giving us too many messages at once. You're changing the messages too many times within a short amount of time, and nobody's listening. And I think that's the part where, in my God job, where I get to, take data and then translate it in a way that actually speaks to Black folks.
And if I may, I'm sorry, Kristen,
Go ahead.
girl, you about to have
Love
me
it
just
so much.
fall out of my chair with all the comments. But the thing that I would say too is that it depends on what the impetus is, because you have a lot of times that there will be an undertaking around supposedly empowering the Black community, but it's driven by funding.
Yep.
Right.
You get these haphazard and very poorly designed strategic plans and implementations. Because we Black, that don't mean put everything on the hip hop track. Okay, I'm not trying to be rude about it, but I'm like, okay, I don't need a soundtrack to hell. I'm trying to understand what the real information is. And so when you do things that are coming from a place that is inauthentic, you will come up and maintain inequities. It's because you can't sustain inauthentic approach and have people that have authentic problems receive it. It just doesn't happen. And then what happens is it lends itself to even more earned mistrust within that community. And as Black leaders, we really have a double burden, because most times we're not in a position where we have the authority to really check where that source is coming from. So oftentimes we're caught in between a rock and a hard and a harder place. And so this is why the things that you all do is so important and so imperative to empowerment of the Black community. Because if you come from a disempowered place, even if you work there, it's going to be very difficult for you to bring an empowerment you don't carry.
And I think to your point, that's why a lot of the programs that I create, all of the programs that I create, I mandate co-design with the community, because there's no way we can do things without marrying them to the community's needs, to how they like to receive messages, to how we want to talk to each other even, right? Like I can't give you something to talk to somebody else and then but it be in my language.
Mhm.
And then speaking to intersectionality again and linguistically appropriate messages, we are not a monolith. There are there are Afro-Latinos, there are Black people who speak other languages, and we have to be cognizant of that as well. So I'll stop there.
So what I'm hearing, number one, is nothing about us without us, right? And for all of the funding that seems to have come forth over the last couple of years with respect to recognizing healthcare disparities, because COVID shined a light, and George Floyd, and lots of other ways that I think things have played out, so that it seems as if there may be more resources, there may be more funding, there may be more forward-facing marketing campaigns, and pledge signing, and all the things, right? But there's still room for the voice of the community in all of that, and maybe that's what's missing from so much of this.
But how
Yeah.
do you,
Hey, you
I-
guys, I hate to interrupt for a second, but Terrell Singleton must be somebody's person. Can you text him and say, I tried to text him and say, go on the Facebook Live.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right. And 510-381-3350.
Put it in the chat.
It
put the
did
number
say-
all
Girl,
out.
they love y'all, honey. That's a fan base. Okay,
That's your
love it.
fan club. I love it. That's your fan club. I kept trying to message him, but anyway.
that's y'all fan club. They tired of me.
But can I
Impossible.
just say one thing before you go on? You guys, I love all this conversation. And you know what? I really believe that our health illiteracy in our community is breeding a lot of the health equity. And it's almost giving like a fertile playground for implicit bias and racism to fester, because we don't know, and when we go to the doctor and we are doe-eyed and we don't know what to ask, and we don't know about our disease or any disease, they can tell us anything.
Mhm.
And so they don't have to give us the best care because we wouldn't know it anyway.
Well, they don't even have to tell us anything. They just don't have to say anything.
You have to say anything, right?
Don't know what to ask.
I would dare say that trust in the healthcare community as well is at an all-time low. And I think that, there needs to be a lot of repair. Dr. Crawford, maybe you can speak to it as well. Coming out of COVID, there were a lot of mixed messages between the CDC and World Health and the different the different organizations, vaccine mistrust. I think there's a widespread sort of misinformation campaign on social media. It's a lot. How do we break through the noise?
I think Ms. Harper said something that was key, is that we need reliable sources to convey information. And I wanted to step back, and this may be just very simplistic. When you have a kid, you send them to school. You don't send them to a room with a book. You send them a room with a person like Ms. Harper who educates them. They have a teacher. So this whole issue of literacy, you can't just give, I agree. You can't just give a person a pamphlet. You have to have somebody accompany that teaching. And that is a problem that we're having. And then, but again, the other point I wanted to bring up is all of a sudden you have all this, well, I always believe follow the money trail, but when you follow the money trail, everybody else is following the money trail. And funds that are appropriated for Black health may be lost in the crowd. So that's a major problem that I see. The question is, how do we overcome it? We do have to, large organizations are going to have to work with, groups like that Ms. Hobbs is in, group that I'm in, Finn, and navigators to help educate or shed light on this problem. And I wanted to say one other comment. And there's something Ms. Hobbs said that's very important. And it's interesting on how we communicate versus other people. And that is, other people say they don't trust us. We say they have to build trust. So why are you putting it on us, allowing them to be scapegoat, to get away with it? They don't
Right.
want to do the work. You got to do the work. And there's not a lot of people doing the work to educate us or working with the community so collectively we can be educated.
Well, one thing that I would add is that oftentimes I don't start navigating the cancer depending on where I am. I started having to navigate the humanity.
Right.
I mean, because at the end of the day, there is still a lot of racism in healthcare. And, you know, sometimes it's a double burden because they see me, I'm Black, you know, in instances where my patients are Black, you know, that means that, you know, we're taking this on together. And depending where we are, we can both be coming in from what is perceived as a subordinate or disempowered position. Or so I make sure that no matter what happens, you're going to see my patient.
Mhm.
Period.
And
And their full humanity.
you see how
Okay.
there's that level. If a patient doesn't have a lot of information and they don't understand the medical problem, how do you expect them to walk in a room and advocate for themselves to a person who has 25, 30 years experience in the life sciences?
Who intimidates them, totally
Right.
intimidates them.
I want to
If you-
speak on that too. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that was my entire experience at the beginning of my treatment until I was able to be empowered and make some changes. But my best friend, I had family members that would go with me. We'd have a little journal. We're going to walk through this thing. And my oncologist was basically like, don't ask any questions. Just, I'm going to tell you what to do. This is what, you know, he was adamant about, don't ask that. That's not important. Just follow my plan. I'm going to tell you what? It was very,
Also,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Also, you know, when we're educating, I love your analogy about the kid going to school, because the kid's going to school, but that's probably daily life. We're getting educated in a mode of crisis. We're
Mhm.
told
Mhm.
you're diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer.
Right.
You have to get educated. while
Right.
you-
Classes in session. Exactly.
Exactly. You know, so our education comes when we're sick for every
Yeah.
disease. If you
Right.
think about diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever, when you learn about it, you don't know about it. And then you're like put in this position where you need to learn an encyclopedia in 5 minutes, you know, like to get where you need to be, to understand what the doctors are saying to you.
Right. Well, to continue on with that analogy, I do believe in a parent-teacher conference. So,
Hey.
Hey,
uh,
yep.
you know what I'm saying? If my child were to come home and tell me, Mama, my teacher was mean to me, whoop whoop, I'm going to the school. Because we're gonna have to have a conversation to find out exactly what is going on and why my child feels as though they are being mistreated. That would be the role of a navigator.
Right,
It's a
exactly. That's
different
what you do.
journey.
Right.
It's a different journey when you are
Right.
dealing with, and this is not specific to Black, but when you're dealing with patients who come from socioeconomically challenged backgrounds, when you're dealing with patients, you're trying to assist patients that are primarily people of color, who may be immigrants, that's a whole nother type of journey.
Right.
You know, there are other type of barriers, you know, and everything isn't always racial. Some of it is class.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of classism that isn't discussed within treatments and investments in care, you know. So I always tell people, I don't navigate cancer, I navigate life.
Mm.
At the end of the day, that allows me to see the fullness of not only my patient, but their needs. It keeps humanity focused because it's real easy to get caught up in everything clinical.
Right.
And you know, also you said sexism and everything. Also, I would say ageism, and ageism on both
Mhm.
ends of the spectrum. We
Mhm.
see so many older women saying, "Oh, you don't need treatment. You're fine. You're going to die anyway." But then we see that, guess what? Black women under 35 get breast cancer at twice the rate. A white woman die at 3 times the rate. And you see what, you know, from April's story, you know, she at least had some care that paid attention to her, but most young Black women are dismissed by their doctors. And so even age is a factor in this conversation too, you know, so you guys, how do we stop this madness, you know? And I know, you know, breast cancer is our lane, but this is happening in every lane with
Every-
every disease. How much undiagnosed diabetes is there? Undiagnosed high blood pressure, undiagnosed heart disease, and things like those are preventable that people aren't just educated about and don't know that they're killing themselves on the inside, you know? And I don't know, how do we talk about it? And, you know, Kristen, this is what you do every day. Like, how do we talk about it? And I think events like what April is doing is an education platform, but you know, our people just aren't getting it. They're
Well,
done.
Can I ask you a question? Are they not getting it, or the amount of people who are getting it is very small? And
Yeah.
and we
Yeah,
don't
that's
have,
what it is.
because I'm putting the spin on it is, well, you know, if I had a national a broadcast that said, Black people, you are, vitamin D deficiency is a problem in the Black community, and if your chances of dying from COVID are greater if you're vitamin D deficient. Oh yeah, Black, and because your skin is darker, that means you're obviously going to be vitamin D deficient. So then everybody in the United States, Black, brown, whoever, should be supplemented. Check your vitamin D, but their message isn't out there. Who's going to push the message at the national level? But then I believe, like everything else, politics is local, healthcare is local. And we just have to be the boots on the ground in your zip code, in your community, in your community health center, in your church, that have to play that role. Because this health disparity problem is not new.
Yeah, I don't think we go through these experiences or have the level of education that we have to keep it to ourselves, because at the end of the day, so many people around us, even if we started with just our local inner circle, community, family, they don't go to the doctor unless they're symptomatic. Like, it's just like, and when you're symptomatic with certain cancers, you know, it's stage 4, and it's like, it's touch and go, because you're seeing Terry bowels, or you're seeing, you know, all these things, and people aren't talking. I still have people to this day that really want to share their breast cancer story, or any cancer story. There's shame associated with it. It needs to be a whole rebranding. And I think it needs to be, you know, a lot of people need to be involved. We need to, I'm thinking from the marketing brain of mine, but like you said, we have to hold people accountable, our politicians, celebrities, but because these illnesses are touching all of them. Look at how many, you know, celebrities, like for instance, Missy Elliott she had to sit out of music for so long with, you know, with the Graves' disease, and so many different people are going through so much MS, diabetes, like you said. I think it just has to be some people that's willing to, you know, to ring the alarm and bring these people in. They're always looking for something to do, but people listen to certain people that they're influenced by. They're pushing everything else to us on social media. I think we need to push health, you know?
Like Dr. Mo?
Well,
Because Black health, we don't have a lot of Black health professionals.
we don't.
And so
Less than 2%.
that message clearly comes from Black health professionals. A lot. So more have to be educated, more have to be out there, because we're more likely to go into our community and then educate our community about these healthcare problems.
Right.
I think we also have to meet people where they are. You know, when I talk to a patient and I give a cancer diagnosis, and we talk about the surgery and that, but I make sure to give an overview of what they're going to hear at every different station and all the different doctors. I kind of preview what they're going to hear, what questions they might ask. If I were your loved one coming with you, what questions might I ask? And then I try to segue into, what do they believe about their health? We talk about nutrition. We talk about, you know, many people want to know about holistic medicine and integrative care. And I think that our community, Dr. Crawford, you know, we shut down when people say, I want to see a naturopath, or what can I do holistically? Or what about, you know, this soursop tea that I was reading that's going to help my breast cancer? And there's not enough knowledge, for one, acceptance for two, and meeting of our community where they are. Because one thing that we did see during COVID, I would dare say there were campaigns that talked so much about why we're at risk and our comorbidities. And people said, I'm not going to that doctor.
Right?
And there was a disconnect there and an understandable one. But how do we meet people where they are with respect to their beliefs about their health? I think we have to really start from there and allow that to speak, you know, and grow from there and build that education from there too.
Are the people that you speak with very receptive to you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You know, I might look like their niece or their auntie or their daughter, but they still sit there and look at me like this.
But
Because
what,
they got that white coat on and they don't trust it. And it takes a long
but
time.
what did you do? You
I
took
build that trust. I
time.
work at it. I earn
And
it.
that's what I'm talking about. Some people's like, well, you know,
Right.
I tried. I said, every time you see that patient, you're chipping away.
Not enough. Right.
And so you had a discussion with us that says that you put more time with patients than the other doctor does.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You get them ready.
And
the
that's
other
why
doctor-
we don't get into clinical
ready for
trials,
the-
Ricky.
Yeah.
Right? That's because somebody says they checked the box. Well, I gave the patient that pamphlet and
Right.
I asked them if they want to be in a trial and they said no. And I did my part. That's my due diligence. Check the box. You know, we offered it.
But see, that's their day job. That ain't their God job. And that's the difference. Okay, so we can start there. And then two, you have the heart, the empathy, and the compassion, and quite frankly, the understanding of knowing that this is when a patient comes to see you, it's not just an appointment. At that point, that's the development of a relationship.
But it's the what, Miss Harper? The humanity?
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And that's my thing is this: if you're not going to treat a patient with humanity, then you should have became a veterinarian. That's just the bottom line.
No, but see, even if the veterinarian has to treat the pet with humanity.
But you know what? Sometimes
I treat the pet with more humanity than
exactly.
That's
That
right.
is my point.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think that, you know, we always talk about a value-based system. You need to start off seeing the value of the patient before you do anything else, before those conversations really start. Because if you see the value of the patient, that patient is going to feel it. They know instinctively, intuitively when they are being valued. And that is at the point when the trust starts to begin. You don't want to put your precious life into someone's hands who doesn't value what they're holding. And I think that's, you know, just what I've learned. You know, like I'm a non-clinical navigator, but I value my patients. Even in moments that I may not even be able to help them, I'm like, dang, let me see if I can find this out. That value does not cease. That remains. That is foundational to everything I do. And that trust will continue to grow, even in my missteps. Because it's not coming from this place of, you know, I'm just going to kick you to the curb and that's it. And I think that's the way we can approach having conversations about health. Is first of all, reintroducing the value. So many people they feel so diminished and so demoralized and so dejected. On top of now being given a cancer diagnosis, they so overwhelmed, they're not trying to hear you. They're trying to hear that they value. This gives them a reason to even continue on with the treatment. Because a lot of them are at their end before they even get the diagnosis. So it's not even our responsibility at that point. Meaning that it's not that they're rejecting us, is that they're rejecting, you know what, I got enough problems.
Yeah, but they have a right. Where's the psychologist, or where the psychiatrist, or the nurse practitioner, or someone who understands the key component of mental health, the problem with not having good mental health.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that appointment is about 3, 4, 5 months, or not covered by your insurance, or, you know, here's a list of providers and you go sit on hold and try to reach somebody. That is sorely missing, even from some of the best cancer programs and you know, and the NCI designated cancer centers. They have one, they check the box, but do you have access to it? And do you know, and is it somebody that actually has the time to invest in addressing these things? And that part, I think, is where the grassroots community organizations as well come into play, Z, because that getting members of our community and cancer patients in particular, that those types of resources outside of what their cancer centers are offering it's essential work. It really is.
It is. And it needs to be culturally, and I can't stand this phrase, culturally competent, you know, because if you're already in a system where you think you're not seen, you're not heard, and you're not respected, and then you get an appointment with a psychologist or someone, and they look nothing like you, and they don't understand the nuances and everything that you're talking about, that's one more area that just got cut off because they're not coming back. Mental health, that's gone.
So you're saying,
so much to
you're saying that
consider.
you're saying that everybody or the federal government needs to incorporate some type of cross-cultural training in medical school or any of these professional schools because they don't know how. You do know how many people are just uncomfortable speaking with Black people?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what were you afraid of?
I know, and you
Mhm.
know, now we're finding out that a lot of that D&I training that they're making doctors do is backfiring because
Mm.
it's pissing them off. Like, why do I have to do this crap? Right. And
Mhm.
there's a study I read like a month ago, and I'll try to find it. But it said doctors are now resenting the fact that they have to take this training. Like, why am I doing this? It's a waste of my time. Have you heard about that, Kristen, at all? Like,
You see, so that's the training. So so from a male physician, and when we were in medical school, and we're talking about physical exams on women and how you have to interact with women, we were trained about how to communicate effectively to women. So why is it so difficult to train how to communicate with different cultures?
Because the faculty themselves are afraid of missteps and they don't know how to teach it either. So I'll give you an example. I joined the faculty at Dartmouth, right? I teach race and health equity.
did you really?
And yes,
You didn't tell me that.
I did tell you that. So
What?
so I teach race and health equity, right? But the faculty, one of the professors said to me today, he said, everybody's so afraid of saying the wrong thing that they don't quite know how to put it into the curriculum because they don't really, they feel like they're going to make some missteps and the students are actually going to call them on it. And we're teaching it from the bottom up instead of top down, right? It's just like when we teach our students to be more proactive and allyship, right? You see something, you say something. Somebody's picking on, a queer medical student, whatever, you can say, well, what makes you say that? Or an off-color joke or something like that. And we tell our students to do these things, but then they get to the clinical environment and there's nothing that supports that, right? The people who are supposed to support this are too busy checking their boxes and getting to the next exam room
Right.
and going to their surgeries and
Right.
doing all the things. And so it's great in medical education, but if the doctors who are teaching it aren't actually practicing it, it's somewhat useless. It's rhetoric.
So there's no credit, no educational credit, continuing medical education credit for cross-cultural competency?
Well, now you get into the AMA territory, and there certainly should be, and there certainly is. There's CMEs and all that. ACGME. We're working on a textbook for. I'm doing gender minorities and doing the queer population, right? But we're trying to do chapters and all this training and all this stuff. But where does it go into a system that doesn't actually support and or value it, that values your volume over the patient and over the interaction, and that extra 15, 20 minutes you got to spend in that room isn't rewarded with anything but what took you so long.
Right. And I think the system has not had its proper reckoning. And so a lot of what we've been talking about is change, right? And really attacking a thing from the standards that exist within a clinical health system. Are there health equity standards? Is there accountability to say, when you interact with a patient this way and we have patient reported outcomes, what then happens and how do we train you and what resources exist? There's a couple of companies. One is Violet, who's trying to do this culturally competent. I don't like that word either, Z. I use culturally responsive or culturally appropriate, but really doing these things that will push the needle forward for clinicians. But at the same time, as we said, if the system doesn't support it, then, as Ricky noted, clinicians will then feel overwhelmed and then be angry and resent the community themselves, resent their patients when they come into their office. Oh, now I got to deal with this. And I, said the wrong thing and now they reported me. Now I got to go watch some video and then fill out a survey. And it doesn't really get to the root of the problem.
All right, so what can we do? What can we do? This is a mess we're in, right? And the word I like is actually cultural humility, culturally humble.
Mhm.
you know, about as you, what's your word, as a humanitarian, like, what should we do, you guys? Like, we all have these positions that we're in where we can influence. And thank God for blackdoctor.org. We have this great platform to speak from. But I mean, what can we do? Why don't we start with April, what she's doing in a couple of weeks? Because I think that's a great education platform for a wide audience, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. The Pink Awards is taking place on February 25th in Atlanta at the Riverside Epicenter. The website with all the information is thepinkawards.com, all spelled the right way, the Pink Awards. And I'm so honored that Ricky will be one of our esteemed honorees. She's our warrior this year. So we're honoring her amongst Elizabeth Omalami with Hosea Helps. She was recently diagnosed, so she's been, since the holidays, basically.
She's still in treatment, right?
She's still in treatment. She just wrapped chemo. So yeah, she's in radiation and she's in the fight. She's our new breastie. But then we have Jermaine Dupree, who's our vanguard, and Dallas Austin, who's our visionary, and Jamal Bryant, who's our trailblazer. So it's going to be an amazing night. Carl Payne is hosting, and Malik Yoba, but we are shining the light. It's where Black excellence intersects with awareness. So we're sharing spotlights from different survivors at different stages. We have people that are 15 years away or 12 years away like I am, or just finished their chemo and got their remission or whatever weeks ago. So it's different levels. The Pink Ladies, we call them, are our special guests. We have a VIP wellness suite for them. They get pampered, and it's going to be a great night. And we do this, though, to really support what we do throughout the year, which is making sure you know everything that we can help you with when you're diagnosed. Make sure you know that, find a navigator. Make sure you know, find naturopathic things. Like, I thank God when I found that cancer center, they did talk about, we would, do stretching and stuff in the sun with vitamin D. I did go and have all this stuff. And I felt like I found out then that I was deficient in vitamin D and deficient in potassium and things like that. So just educating, making sure that we help one another. We're there to support. And I'm really excited about the night. And also I want to point out that I could not find people that look like me as my support group for the first few months. It was, I found some ladies that was 30 minutes away, and they were wonderful. They were warm, but they didn't look like me. So I just want to make sure that changes, and I'm that for someone else.
And you're in Atlanta. I'm in
Atlanta. Yeah, I'm Atlanta in LA, but
Yeah.
Atlanta is where we're doing the show, February 25th. So I hope you guys can come out.
But
The show is in Los
I-
Angeles?
Mhm.
You said the show is in Los Angeles?
Oh, the show is in Atlanta.
It's in
I
Atlanta.
work between Los Angeles, but it's in
Yeah.
Atlanta.
But also Malik Yoba is going to be a co-host. And, I just did an
Mhm.
event with him last week because he has a heart story. Have you heard his heart? I mean, he has an amazing heart. I'm going to get him on the show, Mo, but, he was about 2 minutes away from death with a quadruple bypass.
Wow.
And his sister Akoja, who I also know, had heart surgery when she was like 42. So hopefully he can speak to that, because we look bad across every disease, man. What do they say when white people get a cold, Black people get pneumonia? And
Exactly. Carl
But-
Payne's mother is in treatment right now as well. So yeah, the state of Black health. Gotta
Thank you.
keep it.
Thank you for the Warrior Award. I'm gonna wear my boots.
Oh, you earned it. Well deserved. Well deserved.
So Kristen, what do you think, babe? Any ideas? Any words
Yeah,
of wisdom?
I think there are some evidence-based programs that we are not employing widely. Number one, we talked about using trusted leaders in our community. So at NMQF, we work and partner with barbers and stylists and churches, clergy, and faith-based organizations. But that can be expanded, right? We can work with small businesses. We can expand our faith-based engagement beyond Protestant churches as well, because we know Black people are everywhere. I also think with systems change, a lot of systems really feel, I don't want to say feel, but it appears that they don't feel the community is at their level. And when we give communities power and authority and an equitable seat at the table, then we see that our programs start to shift and we have better outcomes, so that communities have the authority and equity to say, no, you aren't going to, again, put a flyer up about this in this manner. It needs to read in the way that my congregation can relate to it, or, we can't talk about certain things in certain ways, or even implement, even a vaccine clinic in a certain way. And so the system has to be willing and ready, I think, to partner with communities in ways that communities have an equitable voice at the table. And those systems need quality measures. Those systems need quality measures that affect their bottom line, because that's a lot of the ways in which they will respond.
Yeah, money talks. Right, thank you.
Yeah, and you have to measure it, right? What we measure is what gets changed, right? And if
Right.
we doing a campaign and we're just counting the QR code clicks and how many people, go to the
Yep.
website or log on to the Instagram, that's not moving the needle at all.
Yeah.
Now, Ricky, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Moonshot Initiative. Is that a place that Ms. Hobbs' comments can be placed closer to people of power who can make those type of changes or incorporate that into the
Yeah, they're
program?
both at the table, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
Kristen, we're doing.
Yeah, so I'm involved with two
That's why
different.
I'm kind of bringing it up.
Yeah,
This is like,
bring it
I
out.
didn't hear anybody talk about Moonshot Re-Initiative. I didn't hear anything because I wanted to kind of
So,
put it out there. Okay.
NMQF has Cancer Stage Shifting Initiative, which is in alignment with the Moonshot Reignition, if you will. The first imperative is working within the Big Five, and breast cancer is included in that, and to really understand how to move historically excluded communities from late stage diagnosis to early stage diagnosis. And then thirdly, to really understand the correlation between environmental toxin exposure and environmental injustice and possible rise in incidence mortality of cancers. And then Ricky and I are also a part of the American Cancer Society National Breast Cancer Roundtable, which will be one of their roundtables. I think, their model is collective impact. So bringing all of these organizations across sectors. They launched at the White House in October. It was a great event, along with the Cervical Cancer Roundtable as well. And so bringing all of these cross-sectoral organizations, we talk about government, we talk about health systems, we're talking about payers, we're talking about PAGs, so patient advocacy groups, nonprofits, organizations that really have the power to move the needle, but also have to sit and listen and hold reverence to those voices that have not normally been at tables before. So those are two ways that I think there's probably going to be some change. And what I'm learning more about ACS's roundtables that they've had in the past is that they go on for decades. One of them has been going on for 20 years and has been able to make some measurable policy changes. I think with breast cancer, we have a very good opportunity to do a lot of the stuff we've been talking about for a long time. So
So are they talking? Are they talking about it, or are we going to this time be able to implement something to move?
Yeah, and interesting because we were kind of writing out our vision and values yesterday, and I brought up the word urgency because I don't want to be on a panel that's going to last 20 years. We would have failed.
Right.
I don't want cancer to be here 20 years. I know I can't cure it, but I do believe that and the voice I will have on this roundtable is this is a crisis. This is an urgent situation across all diseases for Black people. Like, we don't have time. People are dying. I actually tried to calculate, I need your help with this, how many Black women die every day of breast cancer, but it's just too much. It's too much. And how many support the heart disease? But we need a sense of urgency. I don't want to be on a 10-year thing. I want to be on a 2-year thing. I want to be on a one thing. I want it to be fast and more, better, faster. So that's what we're trying to get.
And the reason why I bring this up is because it's odd. People repeat it over and over again. And I use one example was in 1906? Yeah, 1906. W.E.B. Du Bois, a paper about health and the physique of Black folks. May not be using a correct title, but he talked about infant mortality. And we still have this problem today.
Mhm.
for over 100 years.
No, it's frightening.
And so, and I agree with what you're saying is because people will start talking, spending money about something, doing research on things that they've already demonstrated 2 decades ago. And we're the tool.
Right. And I think that's where, voices that like ours that don't normally get at the table. I see a lot in these spaces, for instance, with one of the environmental justice projects, I guess, that NMQF is working on. Someone from another organization said, well, we need a qualitative study then to understand disparities in SVOH. No, we don't. I had
Exactly.
to, like, the literature exists. We could do a literature review all day. The literature exists, the data exists. We don't need that. What we need now is for all of us, because we need all of you to have a stake in the game, to come together and create actionable plans. And with the National Breast Cancer Roundtable, I think what is going to be the linchpin, if you will, is the fact that every organization is there to hold everybody accountable. We can't just leave this up to one particular entity, like Ricky said, to be doing this for 20 years. Everybody has a role to play, and that's also part of the reckoning. If they don't have to play a role, then they don't have to have any skin in the game, have to do anything. They don't have to, no ma'am, sorry, my 4-year-old. They don't have to reckon with the past and how they have perpetuated these inequities.
That's awesome. You know, I would tell people to, get engaged with their local healthcare systems. I've been doing work for the last almost 2 years on anti-Blackness in cancer care. And we were a grant recipient. And so I'm looking forward to being able to come back and talk to you guys about that work, because it'll be wrapping up, let's say the latter part of June. And undergoing that process as a Black woman was enlightening, infuriating, traumatizing, but forward facing as you look towards what the opportunities and the solutions are. And what I would say is that develop an inside game, inside outside strategy, and do that on a local level. I sit in different positions and on different boards, but it all was by happenstance. This really started out just going and bringing problems that my patients were encountering to officials, saying, how come is, what is this? What is that? And I wound up getting appointed on these different boards. So what that has allowed me to do is elevate the voice of the community. And one thing I say is, don't change your voice when you get to the table. Don't say you represent community and then you get to the table, now all of a sudden it's because, oh my God, no.
Well,
I bring it the way they experience it.
Okay.
Because in order for us to come up with really authentic solutions and make sure that our people are respected for who they are, represent who they are. I don't feel like I need to gussy my patients up to present their problem on poverty.
Right.
And
Or
think,
gussy yourself up. You don't have to gussy
okay,
yourself
well,
up.
honey,
If
I
I
ain't gonna lie,
can't
I'm
do my
kinda mean.
myself,
Wait a minute,
But,
but she's not gussing herself up. That's just the way she rolls.
okay, I'm trying to be cute, but aside from that,
exactly.
I think that's why so many of our community members don't participate, because they don't feel smart enough. They aren't made to feel smart enough. We got so much Black brilliance all through our communities. It's not even funny. You gonna tell me that we are in a position where our community has to worry about their literacy, and we got people that's writing policies for Black folks that's scared to even talk to us, don't even know how? Are you kidding me? I encourage my patients to come as they are, because at the end of the day, it's about effective communication. And if you're listening and you're engaged, you will ask the questions around things you don't understand. And then you start establishing that two-way exchange. So we have to lift our community up when they can't get up. Don't be afraid to grab their hand, pull them up and say, come on, we going to this meeting.
That's exactly right. Because everybody needs encouragement, support.
Yes,
Throughout our
indeed.
life. Ever since we've been born, somebody had to take care of us, look out for us.
And just continue to recognize, being Black, we all coming or have had to deal with coming from a place of trauma, whether it be medically, economically, personally, spiritually, whatever, and be prepared to embrace and help love that away as we enter and continue on this journey. And I think that oftentimes it's forgotten because it doesn't fit a framework. I don't care about a framework at the end of the day, because like I said, if it don't contain respect and equity, that's not a framework, that's a trap. And we need to be very clear about that.
And you know, Ricky, we're gonna have to talk about this topic of stress, racism, and health. Because that's one of those social determinants of health they kind of throw around. Let's just call it what it is. And the
Yeah.
direct impact of stress on mothers, on women, and their children, weathering.
Right.
It's a whole area.
Mental health and
Well,
stress.
and at the cellular level as well,
I
right?
can feel stress.
So let
impact
me take it a step further. Not even at the cellular level, at the DNA level.
Come on.
'Cause you can
Exactly.
go there.
Why our
Chromosomes.
cancer cells look different in a lot of ways.
But because of chronic stress,
Yeah.
Mhm.
the stress of racism,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, those microaggressions that
slavery.
we experience every day, that has a
Mhm.
direct impact on your health.
Mhm.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
this has
But
been-
scientifically, they can talk about that for the other cultures, like the Dutch
Mm.
or two. But what they won't talk about that impact from 1619 to 2026, 2020. I'm early. 2020.
We can quantify it in Ashkenazis, though, can't we?
That's well, like I
Wow.
said before. So somebody stepping up for them, then we have to step up for ourselves. That's why we're here. That's why Black Doctors important. That's why we're important, because the dialogue hasn't gone quiet. And we're
No, we're
doing
not gonna let it go quiet. We're not gonna let it go quiet. I'm gonna go down fighting. You know we are. And I know Z's gonna be right there with me going down fighting, all of y'all. But this is to be continued, you guys. I think we have
Mhm.
that conversation in a couple of months. And oh my gosh, I'm like, woo. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
I'm
you.
in with one of my favorite writers and poets, and she said there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives, right? And so the state of, and that's Audre Lorde, the state of Black
You
health.
know it's Audre Lorde. I knew you were
You know
gonna
it. You know it.
And then could I say one thing for ladies?
Go ahead on.
Early detection screening.
Yes.
Get the
And
message.
that's for
out.
everybody, every cancer, every disease,
Everything.
early detection. Early
And
detection.
know your history, her story. Talk about it early, often, before it happens, when it's happening, after it happens, debrief about it, right? We're as sick as the secrets we're keeping.
And you
And it's
don't have
making our communities even sicker, so.
and you don't have to be 30 to get breast cancer.
No,
Women who are 18,
Sure don't.
18, and 20.
have our Ari baby. No,
Yeah.
17,
I mean,
17.
I think we have to also think about all the guidelines. They were all the guidelines for every disease, for every cancer, for everything were not made with Black bodies in mind. And so we can't let those be guidelines for us. We have to live by our own bodies, know her stories and his stories, and challenge the system, because the rules weren't made for us. They weren't. They weren't.
Well, we know. I usually say we hope, but we know this has been relatable and reliable and real. And it's what we set out to do every single Wednesday night here on blackdoctor.org, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Please, please, please do support the Pink Awards, February 25th, right? Where we're going to be honoring Ricky Fairley. April Love is our, not even our host. You are the sponsor. You're the person who made that magic happen.
He's a curator.
The curator, she's the person who took them lemons and made some lemonade for everybody to enjoy. Thank you.
We're going to
Thank
talk
you
about your
all.
honor next week, Mo.
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh,
Well-
and up in Harlem. We'll be
Home's getting
partying
worked
up in
on the
Harlem.
Fine arts
Yeah.
show in
Well,
Harlem.
before we sign off, I just want to say what an incredible blessing it is to always be in the company of such incredible, wonderfully giving people. You elevate yourselves into the realm of blessing because you are actually doing God's work. And I leave here humbled and inspired each and every time. And I cannot thank you enough for being here. It's a real blessing. Thank you.
But I have to thank you, but also hearing your voice
That's right.
of the fire and the strength to keep on fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not alone.
We're not alone. We're not, we got
Mhm.
you. We got each other. No one fights this fight alone. Woo.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
thank you.
the
Right.
doctor is in. Breast in
Rest
love.
in love. Rest
Yeah.
The doctor is in. Love you guys. Bye.